Good evening, everybody. It's 6:30, so we're going to go ahead and get started. This is Cooking with Plants, and tonight we are going to be talking about unique vegetables. Just a couple quick housekeeping things before we get started. Everyone's muted and your cameras have been turned off, but that doesn't mean that we don't want you to participate in class. So I'll talk through how you can ask questions in 1 second. If you want closed captions, so text on the screen, you can go up to the 3 dots that say more at the top of your team's screen, select language and speech, and then select turn on captions, and you should see those populate right on your screen. If you're on a phone or a tablet, you might not have this feature, so I apologize in advance for that. And then if you have burning questions that are relevant to the whole group or to a specific recipe that we're cooking tonight, please use that Q&A feature. It's 2 little word bubbles, top left-hand corner of your screen. Again, if you have a tablet or a phone and that's how you're joining us tonight, that feature won't be available to you, but you can always email us at lifestylemedicine@trinity-health.org. And you can get your question answered that way. Don't ever hesitate to email us. No questions too small. lifestylemedicine@trinity-health.org. For those of you who have not been with us for a class before, I'm Kelly Wilson. I'm a registered dietitian here at Trinity Health Ann Arbor's Lifestyle Medicine Department. And our Lifestyle Medicine team, we use 6 key pillars to treat, reverse, and prevent chronic disease. Those pillars are a whole food, plant-forward dietary pattern, which is what we talk about in this class, daily movement, restorative sleep, positive social connection, stress management, and avoiding risky substances. So we use those pillars to help folks establish really good habits and routines so that they're positively influencing their health and well-being long-term. And then with us tonight, we have a really special guest. Who are you, special guest?
My name is Will, and I am the farmer here at the farm at Trinity Health Ann Arbor. And to complement the things that lifestyle medicine does, the farm's goal is all about getting those healthy foods into people's hands. And we do that through a number of programs. We have a farm share that you can sign up for, become a member, receive healthy, fresh produce every week for the duration of the season. We have a farm stand inside the hospital on Wednesdays where you can purchase food there. We offer summer camps. We have field trips for local school districts. And also you can just come visit the farm, whether through an event or just wander around and see what's happening during the season. But there's always something going on, and there's a way to connect with food and agriculture at the farm.
Yeah, the farm is a really beautiful space to visit, like Will said. Everybody is welcome there. And we are so lucky that we have a farm partner because we get to use some really beautiful produce, which you'll get to see in some of tonight's recipes. And we'll talk about, for those of you who aren't lucky enough to have a farm right in your backyard like we do, we'll talk about some of the ways that you can find some local food wherever you are in Michigan or across the country. Some quick thoughts on our recipes. And again, if you haven't been with us in class, really the series is for anybody. Anybody can cook. It does not need to be scary or intimidating. We're going to use ingredients that hopefully, I know tonight's unique vegetables, so some of the veggies might be a little bit different than what you're used to seeing in the grocery store, but most of our other ingredients are going to be familiar, things that you find in every grocery store that you probably have in your pantry. We're not using fancy ingredients. We're not using fancy equipment. And hopefully by the end of this class and the end of this series, you feel really confident and comfortable in your kitchen. That is our goal. The recipes that we cook through tonight and in any of our classes are always suggestions. So if you don't have quite a taste yet for the foods that we're cooking, swap in some things that you do enjoy. Start where you're at. Build small. Small steps over time is what helps us make long, sustainable habit change. It's okay to start small. So this is our class series. If you haven't been able to join us for our previous classes, they all are recorded and they're on our YouTube and our Vimeo channel and our class cooking website, which everybody receives the link to. You should have received it when I sent out the link for tonight's class, and you'll receive it when I send out the recording as well. So they're housed there and you can find them in your class emails. Tonight, we're talking about unique veggies. You can see where we're going through the rest of the series here on your screen. If you've already signed up, you don't have to sign up for the next classes in the series. You will get the emails for those classes, so you're good to go. Before we get into the kitchen, do want to mention that this class is a general nutrition and culinary class. So if you have a very specific health condition that you are trying to manage, the content that we share may or may not apply to your particular health concern, especially if you've been newly diagnosed with a chronic illness, say diabetes, for example. You really want to make sure that you talk to your registered dietitian and your physician to make sure that you're making the appropriate nutrition changes for your particular health condition. Now, that being said, this class does focus on plants, and most people can benefit from adding more plants to their plate. Right. But again, especially if you're newly diagnosed with a health condition, it's really important that you speak with your doctor or your dietitian before making any drastic changes. So tonight, we're going to quickly touch base on seasonal eating. We already met Will and the farm, and then we're going to cook through 4 recipes focused on some veggies that some folks have questions about. Are these ones that you get a lot of questions
All the
about?
time. Absolutely.
Yeah. So we're going to do 2 greens, chard and collards, fennel and kohlrabi. And if those are words that you haven't heard before, it's okay. We've got examples of what those look like, and we're going to make some really tasty food. So let's quickly talk about seasonal eating. Part of the reason why these particular foods are a focus for tonight's class is that they're in season. You can get them at the farmer's market right now. And so often these are foods that people are like, no, I don't know what to do with them. If you're looking to find local food in your community, there's a couple really great resources that I wanted to highlight for you. So one Michigan specific resource is Taste the Local Difference. They publish this really great Grown in Michigan guide, which you can see here on your screen, that tells you, okay, it's July. I'm going to go to the July column and see all of these wonderful fruits and veggies that I might find at the farmer's market, at my local farm stand, in the CSA, at the farm, at Trinity Health. So that's a really great resource. And then they also have a searchable online directory where you just type in your zip code anywhere in Michigan, and it'll pull up the local food businesses, farms, farmers markets, restaurants even, that are in your neck of the woods. Michigan Farmers Market Association has a similar feature specifically just for farmers markets. So that's a great tool for finding markets. And then nationally, you've got the National Farmers Market Coalition that has a searchable zip code feature, and the Edible Communities publications. Those, there's almost one in every state, and those can be a good way of finding local food in your community as well. So with that, we'll go ahead and move into the kitchen and do some cooking with our very first recipe. So everybody hopefully can see our skillet and our cutting board. That's where we'll be focusing most of our attention for the rest of class. We're going to start with a chard recipe. Will, do you want to tell us a little bit about the chard? Because I think this is stuff that came from you all,
We
right?
just picked that yesterday. Yeah. Chard is an awesome green. You're going to see it usually in the spring in Michigan. If somebody has a hoop house like we do, you'll start seeing it probably mid to late April, and you'll start seeing it even more widely when the field production comes on, maybe late May and early June. So certainly we're in the throes of having lots and lots of chard, and you can really have it all year round, probably until mid, even late December after that. And it's just a really reliable, tasty green. It's related to spinach, so it has a lot of the same flavor profiles as spinach, which I think we're all maybe a little more familiar with than chard. But the thing I think that makes chard stand out, what you're going to feature, is the stems. That's my favorite part of the chard.
Yeah, I love that too. And if you see, this is a bunch of rainbow chard, which is just a bunch of different varieties of chard actually in one kind of seed pack. So you get all these different colored stems, which, if you remember from some of our other classes, we talked about how each of these different colors in our food, they're providing different compounds or plant phytonutrients that are beneficial for our health and well-being. So chard is definitely helping us eat the rainbow especially when we're using these stems. So like Will said, related to spinach and beets. So we have some of the same compounds. There's a compound called betalain in beets that is a has been shown to potentially be anti-tumor forming, and chard has that compound as well. So we're also getting some nitric oxide from these as well, like we do with the beets. So can be a pretty powerful veggie for us. So to get to our sauteed chard, let's talk about how we prepare it. So we've got these beautiful stems, okay, but the stems and these leafy green bits, they cook differently. And so we want to separate the stems, which take a little bit longer to cook and are a little tougher from the green. So to do that, what I like to do, especially because Will's beautiful chard has such long, gorgeous stems. When you get it at the grocery store, the stems might be a little bit shorter. So I just like to trim off the long stem kind of at the base of the leaf. And then I'll make a V cut. I kind of cut along the stem vein on either side just to get the thickest part. I don't care if I've got a little bit of this stem in there. That's pretty tender. Still, I just want to get the thickest parts out. Okay. And then what we're going to do is trim off these ends for where the chard was picked from the plant. Set that aside. This is a little thick to me, so I'm going to slice that in half. Gather that together. I'm going to keep the tip of my knife on the cutting board and make kind of thin slices. Rocking motion. Thank you for the encouragement, Will. I appreciate that. And if you notice, so as I'm cutting, I'm trying to use this kind of central part of my knife when I'm making the rocking motion. That's our sweet spot, and that's what we want to focus on our cutting action. So I'm going to add these that we just cut to our bowl here. Like, look how beautiful that is.
Awesome colors.
Yeah.
That was a more colorful bunch. That's a nice one.
Yeah, it is really nice. And I love how it kind of like sparkles in this metal bowl. It's very fun. All right, so we're adding that in here. And then for the leaf, what I like to do, could you give me one more leaf, please? Perfect. Okay, we're just gonna not worry about the stem for right now, just get this green part. So for the leaves, then I like to stack them on top of each other and kind of roll them. Okay, and then this is a fancy French word, chiffonade, which is just getting into ribbons. And so you keep your knife on the cutting board and you just make thin slices like this. And I'm using my non-knife hand to kind of keep rolling, keeping those leaves tucked together. And then because these ribbons that I've just cut are now going to be really long and stringy and probably not super desirable to eat, I'm going to cut my bunch in half here. And then they're more kind of like bite-sized pieces. So that'll go in with our bowl of leaves here. All right, next we also want to get an onion going. So I'm going to turn on my skillet here. I pressed the right button, that is. So we're going to let that go. I'm going to cut half of this medium onion. I already peeled it. And I think we've cut onions before together, but in case that you've not been in our classes, we're going to take the tip of our chef's knife and use these little like guidelines. And hopefully you can see those on the onion. There's like little grooves, and we're going to follow those, not cutting all the way to the stem so that they stay intact. And I'm going to kind of move my knife around the onion as I cut. Well, we're making a saute of chard. What other ways do you like to use chard?
It's super versatile. It's definitely great raw, just like spinach, right? Spinach is a vegetable we can cook, we can do raw. So it actually makes a great salad all on its own. I'll often just use it as in a wrap. We're going to use collards today, but I think you could substitute it in raw chard. It's much more tender than the collards are. And so that would make a really great wrap on its own. That's what I would gravitate towards. With the stems, I'll often do a little pickle because they're just, that color stays really nicely in a quick pickle or fridge pickle. So those are nice to just sprinkle on everything. It's just really versatile. Mostly you eat it raw, I would say. Rarely to saute it.
Yeah, honestly, like I'm the opposite. I mostly saute it And only eat it raw if it's in like baby salad.
I will say this, people get overwhelmed by these bunched greens like kale and chard and collards, and they look very voluminous, but when you cook them down, one bunch like this makes maybe a serving for 2 people.
Yeah.
Or at least for people of my appetite. So then they're certainly less overwhelming when you cook them, I think.
Yeah, they definitely cook down. Like all of our dark leafy greens definitely cook down and reduce in volume. That is a really good point. So that big bunch that Will's talking about, don't be scared about it. you can eat it. You can definitely eat it. I like mixing the cooked chard, like doing the saute with grains, like putting it on top of a grain bowl. We do that a lot. I think last year in this class we made like a chickpea pancake, which was really fun. It's called soca. Put the sauteed Swiss chard on top of that. That's also really delicious. So we've got our onions. This is half a medium onion that was diced and is now sauteing, and 1 tablespoon of olive oil. You can also use water here. So if you're avoiding oils for health reasons, you can do a water saute, which is basically a steam to get these onions soft as well. And then to that, we're going to add, this is 3 medium carrots here that were also diced. And I'm using carrots not only because it's going to add a textural difference for our kind of soft chard leaves, but it does add a little bit of natural sweetness. Carrot is a root vegetable. That's where plants store their sugar. And chard, I don't know if you have this experience, but some people tell me chard is pretty bitter to them. And if you remember from our flavor class, one of the things we can do to help minimize the bitter flavor is to add sweetness. And so we're doing that by adding the natural sweetness from the carrot. And then we'll also add a touch of maple syrup if we think that we need that later on. So
those onions can often add quite a bit of sweetness as well.
Very true. Very true. I think another recipe that we really enjoy around these parts is a caramelized onion chard. And so when you caramelize the onions, they get extra sweet.
So much flavor.
Right? So much flavor. It just takes a little bit more time than what we have in these classes. So I didn't want to make you watch me caramelize onions for half of the class. Okay.
That could be a good class on its own. I might recommend that.
Yeah. All right. We'll just do that. Some caramelized onions. Okay. So we want to saute our onions and carrots for a couple minutes. We did that. Next, we're just going to add in our greens. But at this time, I actually can do the whole thing. Oh, and thank you. I missed our garlic, but that's okay. Will is reminding me that I forgot an ingredient, which is why he's here. He's keeping me on track, which I appreciate. Oh, you know what? But you didn't remind me of that I skipped my chard stems.
Oh, we're gonna do the stems first.
Yeah, we're gonna do the stems first.
They take a little bit longer. Those greens go down real fast.
They cook down real fast. Thank you.
The worst sous chef.
No, you're fine. It was my fault. Okay, so we're putting in our chard stems. We want to cook them at the same time as we do our onions and our carrots, because like Will just said, they are going to take about the same amount of time as those carrots and onions. So we're going to let those go for a couple minutes before we put in our chard leaves. And then what we're going to do while that cooks down is we're going to work on our next recipe, and then we're going to come back to this. So our next recipe, we are doing a collard wrap. So these are collards. Something that you might be familiar with, seen at the grocery store. Often, I feel like at least in our grocery store around here, they're much smaller and they're often like wrapped really tightly like this. So it's kind of hard to recognize as this, but again, these are beautiful from your place. You grew these ones, right?
We did, yeah. We picked those at the same time as the chard. And this is one that collards often have a connotation with summer southern cooking, so hot weather, but they actually do really well in the cold. So again, there is spring and a fall green. So you're going to see those around the same time as the chard, if not even a little bit earlier, maybe more like mid to late May. And so they're also very productive, and they'll go well into the fall and potentially winter as well. These are something, you know, we're gonna blanch these today, but you pretty much need to cook collards Maybe somebody's out there has been brave enough to try them raw, but these are definitely the toughest of the greens. And if you were here, you could really tell the difference. It almost has the quality of a thin leather.
Yeah,
and
get
so
grab a chart so we can show you the difference. So like you can see, like this is maybe, I don't know if you can tell online, but this is a little bit more pliable and soft, and this is a little bit tougher.
definitely. And the traditional, the traditional way, the most common way collards are prepared is just to cook and cook and cook them. It can take quite some time. I think some folks will do it for 30, 45 minutes, which I don't have the patience for personally. So today's recipe is going to be a little faster, which is great.
It's a lot faster. So if you have an Instapot or a pressure cooker and you don't want to spend that 30 to 40 minutes that Will was talking about, that can be a really good tool for cooking down the collards. But again, like today, we wanted to show you a recipe beyond just cooking a pot of greens, which are delicious and highly recommend giving that a try if you haven't. So this doesn't take very much time. What we did is, like Will mentioned, we blanched the collards. So what that means is just to submerge in boiling water for a short amount of time. And I used about a minute and a half, again, because the collards are pretty tough and we're using them to make a summer roll. And I want to make sure that we can bite through that summer roll and we're not just like trying to chew chard leaf for forever. So what we did to prepare them for blanching, laid the leaf flat and trimmed off the stem, did our same kind of V cut like what we did, or stem cut like what we did with the chard. Just the top of the leaf on one side down the stem, and then on the other side down the stem, and then set the stem aside. And then I've got these two halves that we're going to use as basically like summer roll wrappers. So this is what they look like before they're blanched. And then this is what they look like after they're blanched. So you can see they've shrunk in size and they have kind of brightened in color.
Nice and tender now too.
Nice and tender. All right, we're gonna check in on our chard.
And those collared stems aren't something that we typically cook with. I know folks will use them as when they're making vegetable stocks.
Yeah.
But they just lack the succulent quality that the chard stems have, so they do tend to go in the compost stem house.
Yeah, agree. They're definitely they're just really fibrous and tough. So they're less enjoyable to cook with and eat than the chard stem. All right, our chard over here in our skillet is looking pretty good. Those stems are getting soft. The carrots are getting soft. So now is the time that I'm going to add in my greens. All right, and we're just cooking these until they wilt down. And we're gonna, we have some lemon juice here and some maple syrup. So at the end of cooking, again, if you remember back to our flavors class, some of the things that help us with that bitter sensation and decreasing it would be acids. So we're using lemon juice in this application and sweet, like our maple syrup. Okay, so we're going to use both of those once this chard cooks down. But meanwhile.
And I just have to point out, because we're not used to using this in our household. But this is a great ingredient, garlic, to include. And I probably would have added that maybe right after the carrots before I put in the greens, maybe. Actually, after the stems before the greens.
Yeah, and garlic, we just have a food sensitivity in my house. It is a very healthy and wonderful ingredient to add. So highly recommend including it. You're getting some really potent antioxidants and anti-inflammatory agents when you're adding garlic to your dish. If you chop garlic and then let it sit for about 10 minutes, that maximizes the amount of allicin, which is that compound that's giving you those health benefits that forms. So do like chop that thing first, the garlic first, and then add it into your dish. Like Will said, with your onions and your carrots and all that good stuff. All right, our chard is getting wilty. We are going to.
And I definitely think tongs in the move here. If you have tongs for tossing big, voluminous amounts of greens, I love to have tongs on hand. And you can get really cheap ones without the silicone for like a few bucks at the store. So.
Yep,
although don't use those on nonstick.
Exactly, that's what I was just gonna say. So we have some nonstick pans in here, and some metal pans, and so we have the silicone tip tongs to protect our pans. Because nonstick's totally fine to use as long as it's not cut up. Because then like some of the chemicals that are inside the pan beyond that nonstick layer can leach into your food. But as long as that nonstick layer is intact, totally fine. So these tongs are protecting that. So you can see the chard is getting really bright green. It's wilted down a significant amount. I still want that to cook a little bit longer. I've still got some pieces that aren't fully cooked, as you can see here. So we're gonna let that go for a second. Collards, just like the chard, are a dark leafy green. Both of these dark leafy greens are high in folate, which is something that helps with the formation of neurotransmitters. It helps with DNA repair. It's a very important nutrient if you are a pregnant person or someone who's hoping to become pregnant. So it's important for preventing some forms of birth defects. So our dark leafy greens can be really great ways to get those foods in, those nutrients in. Collards are also a really good source of vitamin C, believe it or not, which is really important for collagen formation. You know, collagen's all the rage. You need vitamin C in order to form it. Dark leafy greens like your collards can help you get it. And then we're also getting a lot of vitamin K, which is important for bone health, from our collards as well. Yes, so lots of good things. So for our collard wraps, what we want to do here, let's see. We've got a bunch of different ingredients. We've got a couple that I want to prepare still for you. So I want to show you, we're going to get some pepper slices. We're making summer rolls. So we have a bunch of ingredients that we're going to kind of pack together in these. This is a bell pepper. And to cut it into strips, I like to lay it down on its side, slice the top off, turn it around, slice the bumpy bottom off. And then now I've got a flat, stable surface. And I want to seed it and get rid of this pith part right here. So what I like to do is just turn my pepper and make kind of squared off cuts as I'm slicing down that pith. So there's my pith, there's my seeds, and I didn't get seeds everywhere. It's pretty nice. And then we're making strips for this application. So I'm going to stack a couple of those squared off pieces on top of each other and make some nice thin strips. And Will is going to stir the chard so it doesn't burn. Thank you, Will.
Getting pretty close, I think.
Yeah. There's a couple of pieces. We can turn it off. I think the residual equal. I like that. All right. Chard is done. So you can see the color change from when we started. So let me get me one of those. Darkened quite a lot. So that's kind of what you're looking for to know that those leaves are cooked and done. We're going to finish with a splash. This is about a tablespoon of lemon juice. This is a great opportunity for you to add the lemon juice, add the maple syrup, and then taste and see if you need to add a little bit more. Do you need to add a pinch of salt? This is a good time to test and use your senses. All right, but there we go. Chard done.
Beautiful.
Beautiful, delicious. All right, so for our collard wraps, we have got some avocado. We've got some mint and cilantro and some cucumbers. Trying to get everything on the screen here. So there you go. You can see it. And some scallions. And these are some cellophane noodles. Or vermicelli noodles, bean thread noodles. Called lots of different things. So we're going to layer these in our chard wrapper. And we got some carrots. Is there anything else that you put in spring rolls?
I mean, this is a really versatile dish. I think you could have a lot of fun with these. You could be doing brown rice. You could be doing lentils. You could do quinoa. So this is definitely like a more traditional way of doing it, I think. But I think whatever you have, throw it in there. It's going to be tasty. If you have a good sauce like we're about to show you and some fresh, crunchy veggies, it's going to be really nice.
Yes. We also love putting tofu in here. So some sauteed tofu is a really great addition to add the protein to this dish. Okay, so look at my chard leaf here. I'm going to start with a couple of slices of avocado, great healthy fat. I'm not starting at the very edge of my leaf, and I'm leaving about half an inch or an inch of space from this kind of curved edge of the leaf because I want to tuck this end in under my ingredients so they all stay in their nice little bundle. Okay, so I've got my couple slices of avocado. Next, I'm going to put a pinch of our bean thread noodles. My problem with these is I always want to add a million ingredients and then they get really full. So I'm trying to restrain myself right now.
Same problem when you make tacos, exact same problem.
All right, so a couple slices of cucumber. We're using a Persian cucumber, or sometimes they're referred to as English cucumbers. And we're using that just because the skin is really thin and not as bitter. If you don't have that, a regular cucumber is totally fine. You can leave the skin on if you don't mind that, or peel it. Mm-hmm. So you got a pinch of some shredded carrots. You could also matchstick your carrots if you wanted to. Couple of slices of those red peppers, some scallions, and then we've got some really beautiful herbs. So we've got some mint. I reserved kind of the big pieces of the mint bunch so we don't have to rip them. We just put one in there. A couple pieces of cilantro. If it tastes like soap to you, skip it. All right. And then, was there something else you were going to add?
Well, I was going to mention that you can find almost all these veggies locally. Obviously, the avocado is not something we're going to find in Michigan. And the red pepper, we're probably still a couple to a few weeks away from beginning to see the first of those. But the carrots, the cilantro, the cucumbers have been going strong for a while now. So a lot of this is in season right now.
100%. This is a mostly in season dish. I mean, the noodles aren't, but everything else, yes. All right, so we're going to take the end of this collard wrap that's closest to me, and we're going to fold it over our little pile here. Okay, and then we're going to roll as we're kind of tucking in this edge. Okay, and we're just going to keep rolling and tucking and rolling and tucking until we get to the end of our leaf. And now we've got this beautiful little, over here, beautiful little bundle.
Okay. Like a little sushi, I love it.
Yeah, a little sushi. And so for our sauce, show you that and get our ingredients out of here. We have got, this is a sauce recipe from Minimalist Baker. If you're looking for some plant recipes, can I have the fork on there, please? That is a really good blog. I feel like anything I've made from there never fails. So in our bowl here, I'm making half of a recipe. So I've got a 1/4 cup of peanut butter. You could use sunflower butter. You could use cashew butter. Whatever nut or seed butter works for you and your preferences or allergies. I've got a tablespoon of water because this what did I say? Peanut butter is what I'm using. This peanut butter was really, really thick, and so I wanted to thin it down. And then I've got half a teaspoon of red pepper flakes, tablespoon of maple syrup, tablespoon of coconut aminos, which, do you like those?
I do.
Yeah.
You guys turn us on to those. Those are great.
Yeah, I like them too. So this is a good soy sauce alternative if you have a soy sensitivity or you are looking for a lower sodium version of a soy sauce type ingredient. It adds some umami, so like some depth of flavor, a touch of sweetness, and a lot less sodium than your typical soy sauce. And then our last ingredient is the juice of 1 lime. So this is about 2 tablespoons of lime juice.
I could definitely see maybe like some sesame oil in here as well.
Oh,
Something
yeah.
like a twisted sesame would be nice.
That's a great addition. And I love toasted sesame oil. We use it a lot in cucumber recipes. We'll drizzle it on top of some cucumbers, fresh cucumbers with a little bit of salt and some sesame seeds.
Which even just this sauce would be great on fresh veggies like that. Like if you want to make a Greek salad with this.
Yep.
Sauteed vegetables. I could see this on some sweet potatoes or something, like roasted up sweet potatoes. So it's just a really versatile sauce.
It is a really versatile sauce. And this is honestly the sauce that we use a lot when we're doing like a tofu saute or stir fry. This is kind of one of our go-tos. All right, so we've got our peanut sauce, and then we'll just drizzle a little bit right here next to our spring roll. And you could, put a couple spring rolls on this plate, garnish it with some cilantro, and then you've got a beautiful fancy appetizer. Or again, if you're putting tofu into this, you could make a whole meal out of it. And like Will said, we're using tons of local ingredients that are in season right now. All right. Now we get to have some more fun. Another fancy ingredient. Give us a little bit more space. All right, so our next ingredient, I'm going to show you before I tell you, and you get imaginary extra credit if you know what it is. So everybody can see this. We got these frilly bits. We've got this nice bulb at the bottom. If you guessed fennel, you were correct. That's what this is. Are you all growing any fennel at the farm this year?
Here's some fennel, yeah. And for me, the smell is a giveaway. If I see it chopped up in something, you'll know because it has that anise, licorice like quality to it. That's so unique.
Yes, yeah, and I think that's one of the fun things about fennel is that anise licorice flavor, because we get that so rarely, and that compound that gives us that flavor is actually a really potent anti-inflammatory agent. It turns off one of the inflammation pathways in our body. So this is, if you're looking for adding more anti-inflammatory foods to your plate, this can be a good friend for that. So for this dish, we're making a fennel and citrus salad, which is a really common way for folks to use fennel. This is really often seen in the winter when citrus fruit is in season. So we're going a little out of season. The fennel's in season, citrus not as much, but that's okay. It's still really tasty, and we live in a world where you can find citrus fruit year-round. So to prepare our fennel for this dish, first we're gonna take the stems and the fronds off of this bulb. So honestly, I just lay the fennel bulb down like this, take my knife, and cut away. You can save these fronds, and we are going to save them for tonight's dish as a garnish. They're really tasty. They've got some of that licorice flavor in them. And then I have enjoyed pickling the stems.
Oh, wow.
They make a really lovely, like licoricey pickle. You can also slice them really thinly and add small portions of them to your salad as well. I think they have a little bit more of that intense licorice flavor than the bulb in my. How about you? What do you think of them?
Yeah, and I like the greens there. I toss those in salads and garnish all kinds of things with those. They're really nice. Like it's a much milder version of it. I haven't really played with the stems. I'll have to do.
Yeah, you have to, they're fun. All right, so here's our bulb. This is the part that we're focusing on tonight. I always want to like peel off any of these bits that are looking a little rough. So maybe this one too. And then because this is really thick, and we're going to use a mandolin to get some really thin, nice slices, I want to trim this down. So I'm going to trim off this root end. And then I am going to cut this bulb in half so that we get something the thickness of what I might want to put on a fork. So I actually might cut that in half again.
These are healthy fennel.
Yes, these are healthy and robust fennel. The recipe calls for about 3/4 of a pound of fennel. So you need like a couple small bulbs of fennel or one really robust one, which is what we've got here. So Will kindly showed us the mandolin, and I know you have a strong affinity for mandolin. So do you want to tell us about that?
The more dangerous the toy, the more I like it, right? Definitely has a reputation as a little bit more of a dangerous tool in the kitchen, but it can definitely be used safely. And
we have some finger guards for these, which we don't have right now, but typically when we're using them, there's a little plastic finger guard that you can put on top of the fennel bulb or whatever you're cutting, and then it protects your fingers.
I actually really like, if I can snag this.
Oh yeah.
I like to use a double of a cloth or use a nice sturdy cloth. This gives me a little more dexterity. I find those plastic guards to be a little cumbersome, especially with a rounded vegetable. And so I find like I'm not getting the best cut or all of them. But this pretty much ensures that as I'm cutting, I can't cut my finger once it's wrapped up in here. So I can kind of grip whatever it is. I can grip this, and I'm able to cut it fairly easily using the cloth like that.
Yeah.
Without hurting myself.
Perfect. Yes. That's a great tip.
But they're really great because you can control the thickness. So we can go really thin. Like we want to go fairly thin with the fennel because it is a little bit more tougher of a vegetable. You can do all kinds of things. And then we have all kinds of great blades often that come with these. And so you can see here, these would be kind of a julienne or a matchstick size. And so they're great for making spas or additions. I've even used these to shred kohlrabi to ferment it and make sauerkraut. So really, really useful tool for processing large amounts of vegetables quickly that you wouldn't really want to mess with a knife, or for really getting really consistent cuts.
Yeah. And they're not that expensive. Like this one is a Ben Reiner brand. It's not the only brand of mandolin out there, but it's about $25. And this is the mandolin that a lot of commercial kitchens use. So it's a high quality one. You just want to make sure your blade stays sharp. So just like your knives, you treat the blades the same way. All right. So we've got our fennel. Oh, and I see that there's a question. So let me just pause real quick and see, make sure we get that answered. Oh, someone had a great comment about using the fronds, I think, for making a fennel tea. So if you like, you can also use the seeds too for that application. That is a great tip. Love that. So Will kindly got some of our fennel pieces into some slices, and I'm going to cut them because they seem a little bit big to me.
What I would do actually before you shred them on the mandolin, I can grab that knife and show them real quick.
Yes, please.
If you cut out the root attachment point, so that's this piece right in here, and when they're in quarters like this, I just take it at an angle, and now they're already trying to fall apart. And so then when I shred them, they're going to fall into nice slivers already. And so that's a quick way to do that.
Got that. So in our bowl here, you'll see, and I'm going to show you how to do this in a second, but we've got these pieces of grapefruit, and you can see that they've been separated from the peel and the skin. And this is a process called supreming. So we're going to do that together. It's like a fancy, fun way to get rid of the pith, which is kind of a little bit more bitter. And then we just have some orange slices. So we've got one grapefruit and juice, plus one navel orange that has been peeled and sliced. And then we're gonna show you how to supreme another orange that will be added to this as well. So we've got some nice slices of that fennel that's going right in here.
You probably went a little thick. I might go thinner.
Yeah, I would go thinner on this too. Do you want to adjust that and go a little bit thinner? So what I'm looking for, honestly, is probably just a little bit thicker than the tip of your knife. So not quite paper thin, but this is maybe a couple millimeters.
About an eighth of an inch.
Yeah,
just quite thick.
that's too thick.
That's a bite.
Yeah, you want it a little bit, because fennel, that like licorice flavor is really lovely. If you were to bite into this whole bulb, it might be a little too much. So if we thin it down a little bit, we get some really nice pairing with these other flavors that are in this dish, and I think it works out a lot better. So if you want to keep on
shredding,
cool. And then we'll do the supreming.
If I may cut out the cores over here.
Yeah, cut out the cores. All right, I'll do that for you real quick. And then
this is real cooking, folks. We're not Food Network over here. We do it on the screen in real time.
Is the way to do it. Okay, so to supreme an orange or any other kind of citrus fruit, and there is a video that's linked on the class website too. So this is a skill that takes practice. It's one that I'm still honing for sure. So don't worry if you don't get it right the first time. That's a lot of what cooking is just practicing and making some mistakes and keeping going. So I'm going to cut off the stem end here. Okay, and I want to cut off enough so that I'm seeing the flesh of the orange. And I'm going to repeat that cut on the other side. Okay. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my knife and I'm going to, what I want to do is really get this rind and this pith, which is the white part. I want to remove as much of that off of the flesh as possible, because the pith is kind of where we get a lot of the bitterness from, and we want to remove that for this dish. So I'm going to take the tip of my knife, and following the curve of this orange, I am cutting in and going down and around. And I think honestly, some of the hardest part of this is to get the bottom. And don't worry about cutting too far in and getting some of the flesh onto this peel still. We're still going to use that, so you're not wasting it. And if you don't want to mess with this, you can find already peeled grapefruit and oranges in a lot of grocery stores. You don't have to do this. It's just a fun technique that we haven't tried together before, and so I just wanted to show it to you. All right, so I've got a little bit of pith on here still, and I'm just going to take my knife. This is for this application, it's really important to have a very sharp knife. So I just used a honing blade on our knives right before class. Beautiful. And so Will has finished shaving our fennel fronds, and look how beautiful those are. This is, let's see, do we have some of the thicker? I can't find one of the thicker pieces, but so this is more kind of what we're going for. Here, you can see that's pretty thin. You can kind of see through a little bit of that. All right, so I'm going to take these pieces of rind that have some of the flesh, and I'm going to squeeze that juice over the fennel. Do that. So this is going to add some nice zing and a little bit of sweetness. Then to get those beautiful segments that we saw with the grapefruit, what we do is you can see lines here. This is the membrane kind of separating each segment of the orange. We're going to slice on either side of those membranes and then just kind of pop the pieces in to our bowl. Okay, and this is a really good thing to do over your bowl or over the dish that you're creating, because it's juicy and messy. And then instead of getting that all over your counter or your cutting board, you're capturing that juice in your dish, which is what we want here. And don't worry if you don't get it perfect. We're going to squeeze this at the end. So again, any of that juice that is still in here, we're not losing.
So we didn't really talk about other uses of fennel. Somebody mentioned the fennel tea, but fennel is really versatile as well. I think it's lovely raw. I put it in salads all the time. But one of my favorite ways to use it is to cook it, because that brings up the sweetness of the fennel.
Yes.
And it's just a totally different vegetable. So roasting it in nice thick chunks is a classic move. Saute, it can be sauteed certainly. And so that sweetness really pairs nicely with that anise flavor that it has.
Yeah. Agreed. I really like it. So you would use it in cooking, and if you're going to saute, at the same time you would use like a celery or an onion. It's part of those aromatic vegetables that form the base of your dishes. And it mellows like a lot, but is really, really delicious cooked as well. Right. Okay, so we just mix together our citrus and our fennel. I've got a 1/4 cup of olive oil that's going on here. We have a 1/2 cup of sliced Castelvetrano olives. So these are a green olive, as you can see. A lot of times you'll see in the citrus and fennel salads, feta cheese included for some salt and some tang. Instead of the feta cheese, we're opting for these Castelvetrano olives, which are really buttery and are adding a lot of that salt that we might get from a feta cheese. So those are going in here. This is one brand, but this is what that looks like. That's how you spell it, the Castelvetrano, if you're looking for those. All right, our final couple ingredients, we've got some mint, and we are going to chiffonade this mint very much like we did with the chard leaves. The mint leaves have been picked off the stem. I'm just rolling them with my fingers into this bunch. And then I'm going to keep the tip of my knife on the cutting board as I make really thin slices over my bundle.
Smells fantastic.
Yeah.
The smells
I
are
love-
really working together. Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, the citrus and the mint, I think, go really well together, and the licorice flavor, the fennel. So we're going for about a quarter cup, and I've got probably double that, so I'm going to use about half of what I have here, and set the rest of this aside. And then give that a little mix. I'm going to give that a stir for me. And then we're going to take some of these fennel fronds that we have sitting here. We got to put them to good use. And we're going to use these as a garnish. So, well, that feeling pretty mixed to you?
Yeah.
Okay. So we're going to garnish just with some sprinkles of these fennel fronds.
Oh.
I feel like they get kind of lost if you chop them up too much. So I really like them just like this. That's feeling pretty good. And then our last, we're going to throw in some pistachios for a different textural element. And fun fact about pistachios, they're really naturally high in melatonin, which is that sleep wake regulator. So they can help you have a good night's sleep, plus add some nice little crunch to this dish. So there you go. There is your citrus and fennel salad, really bright and fresh, delicious, really honestly refreshing for a hot summer day.
Sounds, and that all the textures are going to work really well. Yeah. I'm excited about that part.
Yeah, I'm excited about that too. All right, so we'll eat this later and report back. All right, last but not least, gonna do some TV magic and get us a cutting board. What is this alien vegetable?
This is probably the one that most people are going to raise their eyebrows about the most, and certainly I think we get the most questions. So this is one of my favorites. This is a kohlrabi, and so this is something, again, just like the collards and the chard, we're going to see this more in the spring and the fall. You probably won't see this quite as much in the summer. Farmers are busy growing tomatoes and whatnot during that time. Most of the time when we're talking about kohlrabi, we're going to focus on the bulb. This is a fairly small kohlrabi. They can get quite large. So
the size of your head. Well, not your head, maybe.
Thank you. So when they're smaller like this, they tend to be a little bit more tender. So I would go up to maybe about a baseball size. Yeah. If you're going larger than that, that's fine. You can get really good value. You can get them, more affordably usually when they're big like that. But those would be better for cooking. They're going to be a little bit more fibrous. So for our purposes, this is on the small side, but it's nice and tender. And you do want to peel this waxy coating. You'll notice that helps them really store well in the fridge. So it's very easy to put a kohlrabi in your produce drawer, forget about it for months, and then find it, in the middle of the summer and be like, this is still perfectly fine. That waxy coating is amazing.
Except you're not going to forget about it, because you're going to really want to make this recipe that we're about to show you, and you're going to be so excited. It's not going to get lost in the back of your fridge. Like Will was saying, most applications for kohlrabi focus on the bulb, but this is in the same family as kale and those collard greens. You can probably tell, right? Like these look really similar to those collard leaves that we were just looking at. You can definitely use these greens and saute them just like you would any other leafy green, and you're going to get a lot of the same nutritional benefits as well. The stems aren't quite as tough as the collards. I do find them to be a little bit more on the tough side than, say, like a kale typically. So most of the time I'm just focusing on the like leafy green bit, and then saving the stems for a stock situation. So what we have already done for you, some movie magic. We sliced off the stems, okay, and then peeled with my preference is always to use a Y vegetable peeler. I just think you get a better grip from it. It's more ergonomic to me, you have more control. So we use this Y vegetable peeler to peel it. And I'm just going to show you kind of the size. So we're going to pretend that this is peeled. We trim off this end where it connects to the soil, so the root side. And then we're going to use a mandolin again, and you can see the size pieces that we got from using the mandolin. So we want to get this to about that size. So probably cutting it in pieces like this. And then this is the side that we would be putting down across the mandolin.
And this is the densest of the vegetables we worked so far with so
Mhm.
far. So don't be afraid to go quite thin on this. You know, thicker
Yeah.
pieces are going to have quite a bit of crunch when they're raw. When they're cooked, they definitely soften up. And that is something you can do with them. You can cook and roast kohlrabi. Although my favorite use is always to use them raw. They have great sweetness, great crunch. They're juicy. So this is a great application. Salads are awesome with them.
Yeah, I love, well, and you mentioned making a ferment with them. Fermented kohlrabi, so good. Just cut up and put on a platter with some hummus or even that like peanut sauce that we made earlier. You could stuff it in those spring roll or summer rolls that we made. Raw kohlrabi is absolutely delicious and a nutritional powerhouse because you're getting this compound that's called sulforaphane, which is present in all cruciferous family vegetables, which cabbage, kohlrabi, your kale, your collards that we showed you, broccoli, and that compound forms and is resistant to cooking and degradation after this product sits for about 40 to 60 minutes. So if we slice all of our kohlrabi and we let it hang out for about 45 minutes, we're getting a lot of that sulforaphane, which helps cut down our inflammation and is a really potent antioxidant. Our cruciferous vegetables, like our kohlrabi, also have a lot of compounds that help support our body's natural detoxification pathways. So tastes good, really delicious in this salad, and really good for you. So we've got in our salad about 1 pound of carrots that were put into ribbons. We did that by taking a carrot, like the one you see here, and just taking our Y vegetable peeler and essentially just peeling it until we got a flat surface, rotating and rotating around until we were just left with the core of the carrot. And then that went into our compost or was put into our freezer bag for making stock later. So we got 1 pound of carrots. We've got 1 pound of kohlrabi that was thinly sliced. Thank you, Will, for your mandolin magic on that. And now we are going to make a dressing. So we have got, can you hand me that bowl without the noodles? We have got a half a cup of a rice vinegar. We have got a couple tablespoons of avocado, or excuse me, this is olive oil. You could use that sesame oil here in this application, and that would be really fun.
Definitely.
I got a tablespoon of maple syrup. And this is a couple tablespoons of minced ginger. I think we're only going to use half that, so about a tablespoon. And then this is about a tablespoon of minced garlic. We're probably going to use half of that. So a teaspoon and a half or so. And then we've got a lime. We're going to use the juice of 1 lime, so that's about 2 tablespoons. And we're using this handy dandy citrus juicer. If you don't have one of these, I highly recommend.
It just lives on the countertop at our house because we love it so much. Never goes anywhere.
We use ours almost every day too. And I think this was only $10 on Amazon. So it's really affordable. And it just helps you get like the maximum amount of juice out of their things. Okay, so now we're just gonna typically would whisk, and actually, you know what? I can
whisk or fork.
Whisk or fork, really something, yeah.
Emulsify it together.
Exactly. That's the goal. So I'm just gonna whisk this. It's not a like smooth dressing. Obviously, there's chunks of the ginger, there's chunks of the garlic. You can use an immersion blender here if you want it to be completely unified. So now we're just gonna toss that on top of our salad here, and we're gonna use our handy dandy tongs, which is another great application for them for tossing and incorporating that dressing. So this is also a really fresh salad, and it has like fresh in flavor, and because we're eating these veggies raw and they have a high water content and they have a really good crunch, this can be a really satisfying hot day.
This is absolutely the kind of food I've been craving this time of year, right? Yes. It's just been so, well, today was lovely, but warm, humid. So yeah, give me some hydration for sure.
Yes, this is very hydrating. And then our final touch here for a nice textural and flavor element is about a half cup of some unroasted, unsalted peanuts. We got that on there, which is beautiful. So we did it. It is 7:30. We got through our 4 recipes. Hopefully you are feeling inspired and less intimidated by some of these ingredients and are feeling excited to seek them out at your local farmers market or grocery store. If you have any questions about the recipes or the ingredients that we didn't cover today, or you want to share your favorite way of making any of these foods, would love to hear from you. So please don't hesitate to email us at lifestylemedicine@trinityhealth.org. And Will, if folks wanted to learn more about the farm, what's the best way for them to do that?
Well, we just got a new farm website. I don't remember the URL, so I'm not as prepared as you are. But if you search the farm at Trinity Health, we actually have a location in Oakland as well. And so there's all kinds of, we also have a couple of recipes and resources about farm programs on there as well. And can learn all about what's in season and what we have growing.
Awesome. Thank you. Well, thanks for hanging out with us, everyone. Hope you have a wonderful evening and are able to join us next month for part 2 of our unique veggie series. Take good care and happy cooking.